This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And we are back for another edition of the Primetime Podcast here on Most Valuable Podcast, your podcast where, Brandon, we talk about college sports each and every week. If you are new to the podcast, thank you guys for giving us your time. And if you're coming back, it is great to see your wonderful faces yet again as we're continuing our previews into the world of college football. And we're getting ready because, Brandon, like I was telling you before the podcast, we're 14 days on the NFL side away from action as the Hall of Fame game is 2 weeks from tonight as we record this on July 20th. But come the end of August, we will be back to college football action, and I cannot wait. And we're going through each division. We're kind of finishing up the Big Ten here, and I want to get right into it. I want to start with the Purdue Boilermakers. If you're new to our previews, we start from the bottom, we go all the way to the top. And with Purdue, I think the perfect starting point, Brandon, is they have a new head coach. Head coach Jeff Brom coming in from Western Kentucky, an overall record of 30-10, 19-5 in the conference, coming off of a bowl win, one bowl win because he didn't coach the Boca Raton Bowl that Western Kentucky was in last year. But this is going to be a new face to Purdue and hopefully one that can help turn this program around. So like people like me who are fans of the Illinois Fighting Illini can't look at our schedule anymore and go, yeah, we should probably beat Purdue.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Because that's usually what I've been like, Purdue, we could win that game. That's a game we could win.
So the Purdue Boilermakers, for what seems like, for their fans, probably way too long.
Since they had Drew Brees.
Has been a tough go of things. Mm-hmm. It has been a tough go of things. And, you know, it's been coaching. It's been a coaching carousel. It's been, you know, they just don't have the good players. No consistency. You know, everyone scores on them. Everyone puts up points on Purdue. And I think that now with Jeff Brom, what you're going to see is a guy who will be a stable centerpiece. And it's funny that you talk about a coach as a centerpiece, but when you give a guy, you know, a 6-year, $20 million contract, you'd like to think that he's going to be a mainstay there for quite some time and really be able to develop something and create and build off of something. And now you give him multiple years to be able to recruit and then see all those recruits through. And I think that that's going to be a really big thing. But I think something to make note of is his record that he had at Western Kentucky. He was 30-10 at Western Kentucky, and he was 2-0 in his bowl games, in his 2 trips to bowl games. And I think that is impressive. That's a good record. It's a guy who comes over, brings a lot of really, I think, great ideas offensively, and his mindset is an offensive, high-flying offense. That's what he had at Western Kentucky, especially in the passing game. And you take a look at David Blau, their quarterback. He's got a lot of potential. He's got a lot of promise. And he is, however, going to be asked to lead a very inexperienced offense, whether that be at receiver, whether that be with the offensive line. But I think one of the things that he's going to need to do is for himself, he's going to have to cut down on those interceptions. But keeping it more with the head coach in the hiring of Jeff Brom, that is a great move by Purdue. And as I've heard some people say, it's a scary good move. It's a scary good hire. It's almost too good to be true. But I think for Purdue fans, it's going to be something that ends up being so very true, but still so very good.
Well, and the thing that I like most about the Jeff Brom hire that they made was this is a guy, although it was not a head coaching position, this is a guy who is at least at some capacity familiar with the conference that he is now coming over into, because you got to think of this, and maybe I think of it because I'm a fan of this team. Jeff Brom used to be with a team not only in this conference but in this division way back 7 years ago. Think back all the way to 2010 and 2011, back when Ron Zook was the head coach of Illinois. Who was on his coaching staff as the quarterback coach? That was Jeff Brom. And that was a team where we saw the younger kind of transitioning into the mature Nathan Scheelhaas be the quarterback. And those were Illinois teams that I look back to now and I go, hey, at least they were a lot better than what I saw in the Tim Beckman era, where his last year at Illinois, they started the year off 6-0, however, lost in the next 6, and then won the bowl game against UCLA, and that was the last season we saw of Zook and that staff. I look at that and I go, this is a guy that comes in, can help out your quarterback who you already have on the roster. You return the Big Ten's leading passer from last year in Markel Jones. And this is 3,352 yards, 25 touchdowns. You have that matched with a quarterback coach who knows this conference, knows this division sort of, because it's a little bit different because of the additions of Rutgers and Maryland's kind of shifted things a little bit. But for the most part, all the teams in this division that you will see from this side of the Big Ten, he knows a little bit about these programs because he saw those at Illinois. So I look at this and go, and I meant to say David Blau is the guy who returns, not Markel Jones. But I look at this and I go, could this be kind of a perfect marriage of, hey, I know the conference, I'm familiar with this conference, and let's build Purdue into not a powerhouse, but into a substantial contender and a serious opponent on Big Ten schedules.
I think that it's great to be able to talk about that, and it's great to be able to say these very positive things. Mm-hmm. And it's a step, certainly, in the right direction. It's probably a leap. Mm-hmm. For Purdue, it's probably a leap in the right direction. However, offensively, they are going to be youngish. Mm-hmm. They've got a line that's a bit inexperienced. They've got receivers that are going to be new to the show. And they've got Blau, who, as good as he was at times, and for the yards that he was able to get, the 21 interceptions is way too much. It's way too high. But at the same time, last year, too, your defense was so bad. You're trying to make up for that.
You got to force situations.
The ball down the field, by forcing it in there. And now that the defense is going to be much better this season, I think that the fact that they will have some veteran talents returning, the defense will be, I think, improved. It will be improved, but at the same time, Blau has to take it upon himself to make sure he's not throwing those interceptions, that he's not forcing it. And that all comes from this, spring ball and being able to work with the receivers and get on the same page with them, and everything leading up to their first game of the season. And their first game of the season is going to be a very real test.
It's against my boy.
No one expects them to go out and beat Louisville in week 1 for Purdue. No one expects that. But I think people are going to expect that Purdue goes out there and at least gives Louisville competition.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I don't think that'll happen, Brandon. Day 1 on the job for Jeff Brom, but he's got to go up against Louisville.
But here's the thing, is that all they need to do is look better than last year, and it will look like they're giving them competition. They're not going to go out there and just lay down. They're not just going to go out there and lay down on the ground, lie down on the ground, and it's not going to work. They're going to go out there. They are going to, I think, take some more shots this season in the passing game. Jeff Brom is a guy who will find ways for his offense to put up points. However, you look at the defense, the line is losing solid pieces. The secondary needs depth. They don't have much there. The linebacking core is thin. They'll struggle. They were not good on third down stops last season. They need to be able to stop a team on third down and get their offense back out onto the field instead of the defense staying out there for long drives, their offense coming out, being on there for short drives, and then the defense having to go back out. That never is a recipe for success. But you can't just say, because it's Louisville, that Purdue's going to go out there and just not play well.
For me, I think
it's really, really easy to say that, and Louisville may very well win a game 48-10.
More like 63-10, but go on.
You're highly rated on Louisville.
A Louisville team going against Purdue, I think it's going to be a blowout.
You're only going based on what Purdue's done in the past. I'm not saying that Purdue's going to be this all of a sudden reinvented team.
I'm not saying you are. Here's what I'm coming at, though. And the reason why this game, to me, I'm not even putting a ton of focus in on the Louisville game from my side, because it's day one of your new era. You know you're not going, like, the score to me could be 48-10, could be 63-10, could be a blowout, could not. The point is, how do you start? How do you start this regime? And I think that is kind of where you're going with. But for me, I look more onto the games they will play later in the season. They only had one conference win last year, and it was an overtime win over my Fighting Illini. Can you win that game this year? Who will be home this year? You will not be at Illinois. You have a Rutgers team where that should be an easy win. You're getting them in late October. That should be an easy win to me. If you lose against Rutgers, then we might have some problems. And I also look to games like the Indiana game where you played them close last year, and Minnesota. If you could take a one win, and I'm saying one win in the conference team, and flip them to a 4-win team in this conference, that might be a huge, like, if I'm Purdue fans and I'm winning 4 games in the Big Ten this year, I'm ecstatic, because you look at the other 2 non-conference games with what Brom's bringing in, he can use that Louisville game as kind of like a test to, here's what we're going to do. This is how we get ready for game week under my system. Ohio, yes, they're a good team in the MAC, but Purdue can beat them. And then Missouri, I know it's at Missouri, but Missouri's not the same team that we saw when they had the Defensive Player of the Year on their team in the SEC and Michael Sam. They're not that same Missouri team. So I look at those games plus those 4 that I mentioned. I mean, I know I'm saying 6, like that could be 6 games. That could be 6 wins if you get them. And that could be a bowl. That could be a bowl game for Purdue. And it's insane that I just said bowl and Purdue in the same sentence.
Purdue won't need 6 wins for a bowl game. These years you only need 5.
4.
You only need 5.
This in this day and age, I think 1 win is now going to qualify you for a bowl as we continue through. But yeah, I did mention 6 games that could be wins.
Purdue is locked in to win at least 3 games again this year.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio, Rutgers, and Illinois. And you could take the Indiana game. You could take that Minnesota game. If they win that Minnesota game, then you know that the Jeff Brom-led Purdue Boilermakers are headed in the right direction. Because that's a Minnesota team that we'll talk about that could be very good this year.
Yeah, well, they have a new addition at head coach coming in themselves from a very good non-Power 5 team.
Missouri will be an interesting game. Missouri will probably win. But Purdue could put up a fight in that when they should beat Ohio for sure. The reason that I made such a statement with them being somewhat competitive in the Louisville game is because if they're competitive in the Louisville game, even if it's at the beginning in the first half, that at least shows you then where this Purdue team is headed. Because last year, if Louisville would have played Purdue, it would have been done from the first pass of the game if Louisville had the ball first. But that's the thing, is that this team is going and moving in a different direction. So to be able to see them at least compete a bit against one of the best teams in the ACC, then that has your fan base very hopeful for the season that maybe they could get a bowl game. That's what it's about a lot of times. It's about being able to give your fan base some hope, and that's something that they haven't had in recent years.
I think
so. To be able to come out and at least be able to put up a couple scores against Louisville, score 20 points, it'd be a win for you.
I'm not expecting them to A, score a lot of points, and B, be super competitive score-wise in that game. However, the thing that fans can take away from it is some of the things that you had mentioned about last year. The offense being on the field, being like the defense not being able to stop a nosebleed, and the offense having to be on the sidelines most of the time. And when they do go out, oh, the other team scored again. Great, now we got to score that same time. If you could see an improvement in areas on defense, if you could see, let's say Blau goes out there and doesn't turn the ball over as much against Louisville's defense, I think there are small things that in a blowout you could see as a Purdue fan is, okay, we are on the right track. Like, this is going to be the start of something good for this team. The thing that I think that is the more focal part of it are the games that you and I both mentioned. Illinois is going to be a big one because you say it's a lock win. I don't want to say it's a for sure lock win because based off of the last few seasons, that game's basically a coin flip game. It's just whichever team. The Illinois-Purdue game the last few years has been what I call an any given Saturday kind of game. Whichever team comes out better, which I know, Captain Obvious, that's been the team that wins the game. And last year, Illinois made some boneheaded mistakes in that loss to Purdue. But the other ones, the Minnesotas, you had Indiana last year and could have beaten them, and you lost very closely. And the Rutgers, I think Rutgers is the one you have to win. If you lose that game, your season's over in my mind because there's no reason why Purdue shouldn't be able to beat Rutgers.
The reason I say that Illinois game is a lock is Illinois, for whatever the reason is, has seemed to really not handle teams that can put up points and have a high-flying offense for the last couple of years. And Saturday, November 4th, at that point in the season, the fourth to last game of the season, I would like to think that Purdue's offense has started to kind of gel a little bit more. So at that point, it may be tough. They may be clicking. They may be on the same page. And David Blau really may have things working for that offense. And I just don't know if Illinois' defense would be able to keep up with it. Last year's defense, they had the pieces, and we're kind of crossing over into Illinois, who's next. They had the pieces, and they had Lovie Smith at the helm, and they still weren't able to get a whole lot of good stops on people. So that's what's kind of interesting to me with a defense that underperformed last year. It'll be a little bit different this year, but that's why I kind of put them as a lock, because that late in the year, you would think that Purdue has some things figured out offensively, and they're clicking. They're able to put up some points.
Also, the one thing, and I will say, I'll save this more for Illinois, but the thing about Illinois last year is there had been games that I would watch, and this goes for Tim Beckman era into Lovie this year. Last year it was, wow, that was a pretty good first half. We're up 21-16 like we were against Purdue. Then you go ahead and only score. It's like the offense is anemic at one point. It's like we're going down, we're scoring, and now we're anemic and we can't move the ball worth two shits down the field. That's what I would have to deal with as an Illinois fan. But back to Purdue, I think they have, at best this year, Brandon, like if I'm going miracle situation, I see a possible 6 wins on this schedule. 6 wins. Like I said, Ohio, Missouri, those are your 2 non-conference wins. And then Minnesota, Indiana's are on the outside. Those are like, I give it to the other team, but I could see you guys, if you come out and play well, could get wins there. And then Illinois and Rutgers are 2 more. Realistically, I'll put this team at about 3-4 wins for this year, but they could get a possible of 6 on the season.
Here is my final comment with Purdue, is that it's going to be another tough season for them. I think it's going to be a losing season for them, but what they should be shooting for is a 5-7 record that could be good enough to get them to a bowl game.
So what you're saying is 5-7 is like their perfect season?
5-7 is what they should be shooting for.
Okay.
5-7, I think for Purdue, after what has been multiple really, really, really down years, 5-7 would feel light years better than what they've been. So they shoot for 5-7, and they make it a winning season in terms of where they've come from the last couple of years.
Well, this is where we're going to turn the conversation on to you guys. Let us know down below in the comments section, Purdue fans, what do you guys think about your team? Are you guys excited for the Jeff Brohm? That's a stupid question. Of course you're excited right now for the Jeff Brohm era, but how do you think it's going to start this year for the Purdue Boilermakers? Let us know down below in the comments section.